Mark Quigley is an Associate Professor in Earthquake Sciences at the University of Melbourne and conducted this research at the site of the quake in South Australia's APY lands. He joins us now from Melbourne. Mark Quigley, g'day. So how did you find this rupture in the ground in the middle of the outback?
Hi, Joe. So when an earthquake occurs, it generates seismic waves that travel around through the Earth. And the characteristics of those seismic waves allow us to determine the location, the depth, the magnitude of the earthquake, and something about the type of faulting that was involved and how the rocks broke when that earthquake was generated. And so if the earthquake is shallow enough and large enough, it increases the likelihood of it generating what you're seeing in the screen now, a surface rupture. Yeah. And in this case, this 5.5 earthquake, reasonably shallow depth, there's about a 10% probability that that earthquake will generate a surface rupture. So that's the first piece. And then the second piece is we have these satellites roaming around in space. They allow us to look at the Earth's surface through radar, optical imagery, and these sort of things, and allows us to detect very subtle changes on the order of centimeters to the landscape. And the combination of the seismicity and the satellites allow us to form a picture as to whether we should generate a field response or not. Yep. And in this case, that information was quite promising. So we mobilized a research team from the University of Melbourne and went out to the site using that information. And sure enough, what we found was the earthquake.
Wow. How tough was it to get to the actual spot? And what was it like seeing it for the first time?
Well, you're talking to an earthquake scientist. So, of course, I'm going to say it's exciting. It's fun. There's also a lot of relief because when you spend many thousands of dollars and lots of energy and time orchestrating a response, you want to make sure that there's going to be something cool to look at when you get there. So in this case, we had a team of postgraduate students drive from the University of Melbourne with a vehicle, and then their supervisor, me, got to fly into Yulara after they'd done all the hard work of sort of, working through culturally safe protocols, determining whether there was likely to be a rupture or not in that location and so on. It's about a 4-hour drive from Yulara. Largely cross country, and it's from our perspective quite an isolated area. And working with the indigenous folks out there helped us find the earthquake. So it's a tremendous feeling of empowerment when you can see what the Earth's capable of doing, changing the landscape permanently. It teaches us a lot about earthquakes, being able to be able to get out there and document the damage.
So what are you trying to determine from studying the rupture?
There's two main things. I mean, the first off is that the morphology of the rupture, where it breaks, the environmental effects that it generates, teaches us a lot about the physics of earthquakes, so how the rocks break, the Earth's surface processes involved. So, for example, which way the motions were predominantly oriented. In this case, the rock falls adjacent to the rupture that you're seeing were primarily to and away from the fault. And that's relevant for the next part of the equation, which is when you see these kind of features in the geological record, and we now have cities built on top of them, for example, Adelaide and other major centers, what sort of ground shaking characteristics, what sort of displacements might we anticipate in future earthquakes? And so this research funded by Ozscope and by SAFECOM and NEMA allows us to kind of forecast future earthquake scenarios based on geological information. We only know that if we can document earthquakes like this one, where we both know the magnitude and some of the seismological characteristics and the geological effects. And marrying those things together allows us to see deep back in time, millions of years even, to understand earthquake behaviors that happened long ago.